The 1508 Italy, when 2 centuries and 8 years had passed since the beginning of the Renaissance era, and the great Michelangelo. Before getting to Michelangelo's masterpiece, make sure you click on the like, subscribe, and bell buttons to support this channel. Thank you. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Well, in 1508, the 33-year-old Michelangelo got commissioned by Pope Julius II to adorn the entire ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican. And today's painting is a part of this chapel's ceiling murals that was completed between 1508 to 1512. This painting was completed in the medium of fresco and is usually called a fresco. Now, what is a fresco? This technique is only used for painting on walls or murals and was introduced during the Renaissance period. The steps are that first, the surface is covered with a combination of water, sand, and lime, which gives a gray paste like putty, and when this foundation is still wet, the dry color pigments are diluted with pure water and applied to it. The word fresco itself means fresh in Italian, because the surface and pigments used in this art form are both fresh at the time of execution. The story by which this fresco was inspired is the biblical tale of Adam's creation. What we usually hear as the breath of life at the time of creation is shown here in God's hand. The old and bearded, yet powerful figure on the right side of the painting, and the human hand, the lifeless but young figure on the left side of the painting. Pay attention to the position of the imminently touching fingers of these two figures. God's right hand is powerful and commanding towards the man's lethargic hand, as if at this moment he wants to transfer a force to man, which is life force or vitality. Around the figure of God and in his mantle, you can see a compact and interwoven nebula of other figures that are angels, supporting God in flight. Although these figures don't have wings, the viewer can tell from the shape of the green and red pieces of cloth surrounding them that they're floating in the air. Among the figures surrounding God, 2 of them are drawn more clearly, with more details, and closer to God. One of them, who is a woman, has God's left hand resting on her shoulder. According to some interpretations, this woman is Eve, Adam's future wife, who's waiting for Adam's creation to be completed, and then it'll be her turn to experience earthly life, stemming from Adam's rib. However, many believe that this woman's got to be Mary, and therefore the child next to her is her son. The fingers of God's left hand are touching the child's shoulder, and this brings to mind the ceremony of the Catholic Church called the Eucharist, which symbolizes God's physical embrace of mankind, God's touch. Unlike the paintings before this fresco, which show God in luxurious and covered clothes, this fresco shows God in a very simple attire that exposes his hands and feet. This feature makes God seemingly available and intimate to mankind, rather than being a distant and inaccessible power. The peaceful look on God's face has created a beautiful contrast to the powerful and dominant outstretch of his hand towards Adam. The figure of Adam is lying on the ground, symbolizing his unity with the earth, as the name Adam means earth in Hebrew. There's also a part of this fresco that isn't usually included within the frame of photos taken of it. On the 4 corners of this fresco, there are 4 other angelic figures who are also floating, but they too don't have wings. The one under the ground, where Adam is lying down, has his hands full of acorns. This conveys the earth fertility and mankind's future use of the barren land where Adam is resting. Lastly, the bodies of both of the main figures in this fresco, God and Adam, are very much similar to each other in terms of form and posture, and this illustrates a biblical verse, Genesis 1:26, about the creation of man, with which Michelangelo must have been familiar. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness.